for you since I've been gone.
And we are back with RodShop Season 4. I'm your host, Joe Fonsell. Now, over the years, RodShop has gone and showed you guys a whole bunch of different stuff. Season 1, we started with where rodding is coming from and how it's been building. And we went down, we got to the grassroots. Season 2, we tried to be all fancy and we built a bike in 7 days and build cars and stuff. And it just worked out way too expensive. Season 3, we went back to it and we went back to the market and we saw what's available, what cars are out there, and what the shops are doing. Season 4, we're going even further into that. We're asking some serious questions. Where did custom car sound and stuff come from? What other developments is it? How has the industry actually grown, even with lockdown?
I'm bound to change your point.
In Season 4, we've added in a whole bunch of new elements. The first one is called the RF Army. Now, this is where we've gone around the country and we have found some of the sickest cars that is out there. This is not all hot rods. This is not all street rods. This is just some of the best customs that South Africa has to offer. We've also included a new segment into the show called Win My Ride. Now, people will have seen it. We've been promoting it a little bit, but lockdown gave us a little bit of issue, but we're all back and running with this thing again. Win My Ride is where we are giving away an E30 wide body with over 700,000 Rand. Now, you're asking, how do we get to that number? You're going to have to watch the show and actually see how the entire build has happened behind this thing. This thing is absolutely insane.
Don't do me wrong.
Now, this season, we are working hand in hand with a podcast that we started during lockdown called Joe's RodShop Podcast. Now, that's available on Spotify and on PocketTV.mobi. Now, get a chance, go check out the show because there's interviews of some of the top car guys in the world. Yes, we have gone out and we have actually gone and interviewed producers, some of the best TV shows that you see on Ignition. We've picked some of the top race drivers and just all-around cool car guys that we have found. So go check out Spotify and PocketTV.mobi and you can go see all the conversations that we've had. This is RodShop Season 4. You gotta check this out. This is gonna be cool.
For you since I've been gone.
My name is Brett Farquharson. I'm the owner and CEO of and director of Automotive Distributors. We import 12-volt American mobile electronics, which we've done for 30 years and really passionate about it. We import a number of brands. Mostly Rockford Fosgate is our core product that we've been using for nearly 30 years. We do Silvan Vega, which is also an American product. It's been around since 1954. We do Audio Control, which is based in Bolton, Seattle. It's a processing company, very specialized. And we do a range of instruments and tools which are used to assist installers, which is a company called Mobile Solutions, which we affiliate to, as well as our training affiliates to that. And then we also do some peripheral products, which are sound dampening material, Silent Coat, which is actually from Latvia, and was developed for the Russian military. So it's pretty extreme. I started my interest in audio back at school, actually, and I mean, everyone at school had some interest, be it DJing, but for me it really was. It was so passionate about just making music sound better. And you know, there wasn't very many applications that you could use music or could play music in other than home. And it always interested me that, you know, how do you get this into a mobile environment? So I started as an installer after leaving school, did electronics, studied electronics, which wasn't my real interest. However, there was no trainings for engineers for doing audio in South Africa in the 80s. So I started working at a stereo shop, and started fitting stereos. In those days, it was 6x9s and booster equalizers and the basic stuff. And pretty much it was almost like the black sheep of the family kind of job. Like, who would do that, you know? That passion grew to, and you know, obviously figure out, well, how do you add woofers to a system, and stripping subwoofers out of hi-fi speakers and trying to understand the enclosure volumes, and you know, where do you get an amplifier from? They weren't available. And I mean, bear in mind, in the 80s, South Africa wasn't exactly an easy country to import to. But that passion didn't stop me. And I was then headhunted by a company in Durban, which heard about this young guy, which, you know, back in those days I was a lot younger, which had this interest, and it allowed me to take that to another level. And I designed some pretty cool things. I mean, we were involved with one of the first first built amplifiers in South Africa. It was actually called the Ice Amp. I designed the casing and I assisted with electronics. That was in the early 80s, and we weren't allowed to import stuff, so it was understandably a reason there was a market for it. Then the Golf, back in the day, Golf 1, everyone put their speakers on the side pods, so I came up with a 6x9 enclosure that fitted and replaced the plastic side pods. That became like a phenomenon that was used all over the country. People from Joburg came and copied these things, and I didn't know. I discovered this later. And then in 88, I met my wife, and she convinced me that we need to open our own stereo store. Auto Audio was essentially designed to provide the dreams that I had for everybody else. And we were the first company that started putting in proper subwoofers and amplifiers, and the first events that was ever, in the country. Back in the day when we were doing sound-offs, and no one knew what they were. America was doing them. And we had people coming from Joburg. People would drive their car down and they would fly back. And we didn't know how. We had no social media. People were just talking about this shop in Pietermaritzburg that started off with one installer in 1988 and outgrew itself in 3 years. I was winning trips with all these suppliers for the sales, and I was oblivious to why I was winning all these trips. But lo and behold, there were so many people wanting to get a part of this, this new thing. After 3 years, I moved into a new location, 1,400 square meter store. We got to 25 installers. We were doing 100 cars a day. We had contracts with Sony South Africa to do all the OEM fitment. The company grew, and the biggest problem was getting proper audio, proper amplified sound, not just your radios and speakers. And all the companies weren't focusing on that. So in 1992, I knew that, I'd known Rockford Fosgate was like the holy grail of car audio. And I took it upon myself to establish who was, the representative of it, if there was one. Turned out there actually was someone in South Africa which wasn't doing anything with it. I bought the rights, bought all their stock, decided, well, okay, we've got to have the first official sound off in South Africa, like the Americans were doing. So I flew in 2 judges from the States that were actually judges for ASCII at the time, and we shut down the town. Literally, we had queues of cars, like 300 cars around the building, and shut down the street. There was such an absolute desire for people to see what was possible, because obviously where people were educating themselves was through magazines, which were typically 2 months late because they come from the States and they were old versions, but they could learn what was going on. And I bought my first audio control real-time analyzer, and we had this event, and it's kind of where it started, and it evolved to to a whole different level. And eventually the next year we had to hire the Royal Showgrounds, and we booked out all the venues in there to have enough space for all the cars that were coming. The following year we started what was the Gunston 500 used to be in Durban beachfront. So we then got contacted by the organizer, and they said, look, they want to have something that's going to provide additional value. So we hired the Village Green, which was this monstrous, big permanent tent. It was the biggest indoor venue you could get. We hired this thing, and we invited the world champion at the time, Mark Fakuda, to come out to South Africa, and he'd been 11 times world champion. And that was the pinnacle and the end of my involvement with doing sound shows. And we focused from that point onwards on just educating and training our dealers. Because Rockford, RTTI is the acronym, which is Rockford Technical Training Institute, was the first company globally that actually trained people to do installations in cars with sound. And we took that same blueprint and implemented it in South Africa, and it was registered. And as time went on, we realized this was actually what was missing in the industry, because retailers never had anyone, no distributor, teaching them. They would just have a rep, give them some product, and it's happening today. And a lot of those companies have become statistics. It's like I always use an acronym of, well, use the relativeness of a restaurant, where you've got a chef in the kitchen, and for me, if you have the ingredients and the recipe, if you ain't got the chef, you're not going to get people coming back, and that's the problem. So people sell products, they literally give it to the retailers, and they expect them to provide the experience that manufacturer had intended.
For you since I've been gone. For you since I've been gone.
I'm busy driving the first giveaway car for Win My Ride. So now what is Win My Ride? Very simple. We find one of the coolest cars, we make it even cooler, and then we give it away, just like that. So when we had to choose what was the best car to give away, we decided on an E30 BM. Because hey, nothing says awesome like the shed show. So this car, it's going to be a little bit different. We're not just going to paint it, put it out there. We're going to go all out. This thing is getting a wide body kit. This is getting custom sound, custom wheels, air ride suspension. This thing is going to be legit. I mean, you can win it. This baby can be yours.
Hi, I'm Philip from Hatfield Sound and Security, and this is a Paul Yaffe original truck. This motorcycle started its life as a Harley-Davidson trike, standard 103 motor in it. Paul Yaffe, who's a world-renowned bike builder and customizer who's won numerous awards in the States, built this bike specifically for a Sturgis event and transformed it into a bagger truck, the first of its kind. It runs a 26-inch billet front wheel. It's got all his signature floorboards, shifter pegs, hand grips, and the like, together with his stretched out rear fenders that give it that low, wide look. It runs on a full air ride suspension, front and rear. This baby can go. This motorcycle was built in conjunction with Rockford Fosgate, USA, specifically for the Sturgis event, not only to showcase Paul Yaffe's trike bagger, but also to introduce the Rockford Fosgate range of marine equipment specifically to the motorcycle fatigue. bike was kitted out with a punch range of marine Rockford Fosgate equipment. It's also running a marine 12-inch woofer that's been ported and is firing down. Rail boost amplifiers drive those speakers. The bike sounds as good as it looks. So one would ask the question, how did this specific, unique, one-of-a-kind motorcycle land up on our shores? It was seen at Sturgis. It was destined to go and be showcased at the SEMA show in Las Vegas, but never made it to those shores. A dear friend of ours got hold of it, purchased it, and they imported it, and it's now part of our family. Rockford Fosgate manufacture a replacement OE system that is plug and play and takes the Harley system from being completely mediocre to insanely out of this world. Available from Hatfield Sound and Security and our Joburg sister Woodmead Sound and Security. Harley Davidson, as one would know, is synonymous for loud pipes, loud music, rock and roll. Rockford Fosgate can bring that to you. So no matter what you ride or what you have, you bring it to Hatfield Sound and Security, we'll find a way to feed your soul.
For you since I've been gone.
Training started becoming more and more serious as time went on. We invested more and more into it, and our facility became inadequate. So we built a new facility, which we're in today, and we've got a 1,300 square meter building, which has got a training center. It's got a conference center for a training and a training workshop. And our reps are not sales reps; they're technical reps. And the whole thing is to make sure that the product is installed. And just with Rockford alone, we do 4 segments. We do mobile audio, we do marine audio, we do motorcycle audio, predominantly Harley Davidson, and we do ATVs. Now, these aren't just products that are modified, they are purpose-built specifically for those applications. And we understand the acoustical challenges, we understand the electrical challenges, and Rockford invests millions of dollars into the R&D of it. Because of the training that we've done over the years, it's built up a dealer network in Southern Africa like no other. And I can quite openly say this, that there's no other company that does 12-volt audio that has the ability to say they have the highest skilled people. In the sense that they're skilled, but we've invested in them. We've invested in making them the very, very best. And we grade these dealers, which is correct, because if you go and have your sound system installed at a dealer that's not, you need to know up front that you're not paying for something that people alluded to. So you can say you're a specialist and the consumer could be duped. We've made sure that doesn't happen. But remember, we have a specific select few that we want to sell our brands to. It's not how deep their pockets are, it's how deep their heart is and their passion. And if they meet the criteria, that's the start of it. The rest comes. Money comes naturally. How do those consumers ever get to, show off what they're proud of? And I'm sure everybody's, when they bought their first new thing, they want to go out and show their mates. So we start this program, which is going to be called RF Army, what's actually launched already. It's on our social media and our website, where consumers can sign up, they enlist, they get free R-Bucks, which is the return for, giving us their time. And they've got to just send us video footage and pictures of their installs and their rides. And it's not just about the installation, it's about the package, the whole car. It's the mags, it's the stance, it's everything. It's what people define as hot rods, in a modern sense and in the old sense. And that would be obviously put onto our social media platforms. We're getting some exposure from that, but to give something back is what we see as important. And for every social media interaction that's recorded through our platforms, we're giving them an R-Buck. Now, those R-Bucks can be accrued, and they'll get to use that on our website to purchase free products through our dealers, which is, to me, it's the right way to do it. So if someone wants to upgrade their system and then maybe don't have the money, they can use this platform to do it. Going forward, where I see the industry going is certainly not going to be easier for people that have not invested the time, as I mentioned earlier, and a lot of companies that have just winged it are going to find it more and more difficult. And the reason why I say that is that the motor industry is continually developing their electronics. There's some manufacturers that are putting microphones hidden in the car to counter road noise, for example. So instead of putting in thicker metal or sound dampening, they can deal with this electronically. Now, when you put an installation upgrade for an audio system, there's a problem, because that system obviously is hearing what you've added, and it's an issue. Now, as these things develop more and more and more, it's going to become that there's going to be a very refined set of dealers that are going to be capable of dealing with this. Now, 40 years ago when I started in the industry, there was none of that. I mean, you could literally just chuck an amplifier in, and in fact, amplifiers weren't in existence then. But 30 years ago, you could throw an amplifier into a car, and there was none of those issues. 10 years ago, that started coming into the industry, and it was a challenge, but most people could get around it by chucking another radio, okay? It's got to the point now where you can't just chuck out the radio, or the source unit, as you may call it, because it's tied into their CAN bus, their fiber optic, their telemetrics, everything is tied into it. And as the companies try to develop sources that are trying to integrate with that, they're becoming really expensive. And people don't want to change their dashboard and have to spend, I don't know, 15 grand to change the radio. So the industry is going to have to be affiliated to not only just America, which is the only country in the world that has a recognized industry graduation for this, but other countries like South Africa, and hopefully that our training will become actually recognized, which people that are in this industry are going to need to require in order for them to actually work on cars. Because I believe manufacturers are going to make it so difficult, but there's going to be this continual war, and there always will be. Consumer wants his stuff added or her stuff added, and manufacturers are going to continually make it worse and worse and worse. So companies that have obviously realized that and embraced it, which is Audio Control and Rockford, predominantly have invested in that because they see that direction, are going to come out of this, on the other end, because their brand name's been around. Companies that have chosen not to, unfortunately, they're going to become a statistic. That's where I see the future going, and I hope I can, and all the people that work in this company can pass that legacy on. Because if we don't, realize that very quickly we all have a short space in time on Earth, and if we don't do anything of value that's tangible, what are we doing? What have we left behind? Our company philosophy is based off and aligned with nature. And, once you're a Rockford dealer, you're going to benefit from all the investment we make with the brand, the training, as we discussed. But the real question is what are you going to give back as a dealer to reinvest into that brand? Just like when you're farming, you got to put back in the soil. In other words, you don't get to reap your crop. And for us, that's what's key and most fundamental. It's not just about selling a product. It's about continually reinvesting in our dealers and hoping that they can continue to reinvest back for the next generation. And right now, we are just custodians of the brand, and we have to pass on that torch one day and make sure that it's has meaning in the years to come.